medical industry is the one that is growing the most, because it's not just those really expensive degrees to an MD that you need. It's people who are trained to administer x-rays and draw blood, and those are the types of jobs that we're going to see a higher and higher demand for as soon as we pass health insurance reform.
Right. And as the boomer population ages and needs more care and services. But you might also see, and correct me if I'm wrong here, might you also see people who otherwise would not be retire because now they don't need the job to hold on to health insurance, and perhaps it become more of an employee-friendly market rather than an employer-friendly market. Is that correct?
I think.
Now, I just have to say this. Our Congressman Elton Galbraith voted against the stimulus, correct?
Right.
But he did take credit for some of these improvements, yes?
Yes.
Right. So between the stimulus and the healthcare bills, there's also financial sector reform, correct? Can you talk a little bit about how that might improve the overall economic outlook?
Sure. Well, the president is committed to, number one, getting every penny back that taxpayers spent on bailing out the banks. And I think that not only is that important for our financial sector and that outlook, but it's also really important for individual taxpayer morale, knowing that the money that we used to, I think, keep us from another Great Depression, which was clearly really important, that money is actually going to come back into our pockets. So that's one thing that the president is intent on doing. He also wants to help people be smarter and protect them against credit card companies who, up until recently, have been gouging people in terms of raising premiums and not giving people enough time to pay their bills. And as we know, the credit crisis and overspending on credit cards was a contributing factor to the downturn of the economy. So I think that he's putting in place new restrictions on credit card companies who are overcharging people and allowing people to feel this false sense of security when they're using credit cards to pay for essential items.
Now, Tom, when you've been looking for work, is there anything that you would like to see, either from a government or non-government organizational standpoint, that would make it easier for you to find decent employment?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the direction the government and the president's taking, I think, is great. The question, with all the stimulus, in my age and the baby boomer, will I be able to get a job under one of these stimulus packages? That's the question. Or is it for people that already have that expertise?
So both in terms of your age and your training level in terms of acquiring that?
Correct.
So you would, is there anything that you would want to see help? Is it that you would want training help, or?
Yeah, I guess I'd feel much better if I knew that the government and the president was aware of the baby boomers in the situation that I'm in. And maybe there could be a stimulus package for that age group. Got it.
Now, I know that one of the things that's being talked about is, say, a Medicare buy-in for 55 and up. That may happen, it may not happen. Are there any other things that you can think of, Emily, that might help people in Tom's age category?
Well, I know that, as I said before, there is a lot of money going into training programs, especially for green jobs. I'm trying to think about other specific things here in California, but I do think that the skills that older Americans have definitely can translate into the areas where we're focusing, like the medical industry and education.
Right. Now, Gabrielle, recent statistics have shown that very few people, about 1 in 10 Americans, are saving up anything close to the amount that they would need to retire on based on current actuarial tables. Right. So you see stories of people who thought they were going to retire, didn't understand what it would take, and now that they're 75 years old and working as greeters at Walmart.
Yes.
Obviously, one tries to avoid that situation, but if one is of that age and finding oneself in that situation, how does someone who's 70 or over, how does someone over 65 best seek employment and decent employment that will be healthy for them?
Well, the service sector is good in terms of elder care or care for the disabled. The service sector is very good for that. The jobs aren't necessarily paying that well, but if a person finds themselves in that situation, they're probably going to have to do some changes in terms of their lifestyle and their expectations. But that doesn't necessarily mean they can't be as happy. It's just a different outlook on the values and what you're doing and your expectations. But the whole thing, I think, is we're into a new time, and we have to open our minds and think outside the box that we used to.
Right.
And that's for every age group.
Now, Gabrielle or Emily, for someone who's looking at trying to acquire one of these jobs that's coming through, either the Stimulus, Recovery Investment Act, or the Jobs Program, or one of these other bills, how does one best go about looking for one of these jobs?
Well, I think that we're kind of right at the crest of really knowing. I'm sure
Employment Development would know, general state resources would know, but I think all that's going to be coming in the future and is going to be made clear. I think right now he's having a hard time finding those opportunities. I don't think we know yet. I think it's a little too soon, and maybe you would want to speak on it. I think it's just happening, so I think there is going to be a path for that.
I think that's right. I think we really are just starting to see the impact of the stimulus funding on job creation. So again, it is focusing in, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it is focusing in on those industries where we know there's plenty of room for growth. So it's not just construction, it's green construction. It's not just working as a doctor, it's working in the allied health professions. So there are, I think, a lot of different ways to sort of focus in on the industries and go from there in terms of looking for a job.
Right. So in terms of the overall picture, what are these industries? We're talking about medical, we're talking about education, we're talking about what other industries are strong for growth right now?
Well, accounting still remains good.
Accounting?
Financial accounting type of positions. A lot of people in those industries were not laid off as much. That's still a very good area. CPAs, that whole area.
Outsourcing is also a huge concern with jobs. Outsourcing and trade falls into that as well. But when we talk about outsourcing, there are certain jobs that, so long as we have the system that we have, are likelier to be sent abroad than not. Can you speak to some of the jobs that people could get into that are unlikely to be sent overseas? And perhaps some of the jobs that would be more likely to be sent overseas?
Well, we know there's a lot of customer service overseas.
Right.
And I think just the same thing that I said, the accounting, the medical, the green jobs, education.
When it comes to green jobs, one of the the solar and the wind and the things that we can see when we're driving down the freeway and look up at the wind tower, are kind of the sexy aspects of green jobs and clean energy. But one sector that's really going to be growing, I think, is energy efficiency, and that means weatherizing our homes so that they're better insulated, hot and cold air aren't escaping, making sure that we have energy efficient appliances. That's sort of the interim way that we can go from our oil-based economy to an economy that's based on wind and solar and other sources of energy. And the truth is that energy efficiency is actually the most cost-effective route towards becoming an energy independent nation. So these small things are things that you can't export. You can't have somebody in another country weatherizing your home. And I think that that's definitely one of the areas where we're going to see more and more opportunities for job creation.
Right. Now, some people on the other side of the aisle might say, well, why don't we expand our domestic oil drilling as well? Could you possibly go into the economics briefly of why that's why green jobs are a better job growth industry than, say, more domestic exploration? Well,
it's just the opportunity for the future. I mean, our oil and energy resources in that respect are limited, whereas the Earth provides us with opportunities for creating energy through wind and solar and other ways that are, for all intents and purposes, infinite. So I think that we really need to be practical and take a long-term approach. Clearly, we need to use oil and carbon-based sources of energy right now. Also, President Obama has invested into building nuclear plants, which is a relatively safer way, a cleaner way